Kalimera, kalispera, kalinichta. No matter where in this wild, wacky, and sometimes wonderful world you might be, thank you for making the Highbury Squad part of your day. It's a new week. It's not a new week. It's the end of the week. And I forgot to put the thumbnail up. I'm really tired. And here we are, squaddies. Let's rock and roll, shall we? Let's just get the show started. Let's just get the shit show intro over with.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
Hola, squaddies. There it is. There's the thumbnail. How you doing? I hope you're well. We'll be joined by Ben Jacobs in about 5 minutes or so to have a little bit of a transfer tornado chat. Liverpool doing their business early, kids. They're not messing around. We need to get our finger out. We need to get our finger out. There's no messing about this summer. People have said in previous seasons that it's the biggest transfer window ever. Well, I would argue that this one is the biggest transfer window ever. And Tick-Tock, Arsenal are on the transfer clock. So let's see how this works out and shakes out. Liverpool already signed Frimpong. Sounds like Wirtz is going that way too, a couple of others. And I'm looking forward to asking Ben about GYÖKERES because his uncle, often I don't let my uncle come out and talk about my career in any way. It's never a good idea. But GYÖKERES' uncle came out and made a comment about how he expects him to stay and his current club, that he will be staying. And I guess after this big match this weekend with Benfica, we'll know a little bit more about that. But we can't be wasting our time. You know, you guys know what it's like, especially when you're younger. You fancy someone so bad, and maybe they don't fancy you back as much, right? And you keep pursuing it, you keep pursuing it. And before you know, that person is out dating somebody else. They may have slept with them as well. I mean, they've definitely had dinner, and you've wasted all that time chasing the wrong tail. Just saying. We cannot be wasting time chasing the wrong tail this summer. We've got to be concise, precise, and we have to do our business early. And with this Club World Cup thing going on, there's going to be some major moves happening. A lot of teams are going to want to strengthen before that competition starts. And we have to be, Johnny on the spot. We've got to put our money where our mouth is. And we've heard a lot from a lot of people about we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And one of the things I think that has intrigued me that I talked about with Potsy and I talked about with you guys as well is the ones upstairs comment. That scares me a little bit because it makes me feel that Arteta's already putting Berta in a bit of a hole. Now, look, I don't know anything. I'm just talking about words. Words matter. As you know, I work in PR and communications, and words mean everything. You spin words, you say words, you project words, and you oftentimes maybe don't want to say what you mean, and you're kind of meaning what you're saying. And that comment has really stuck in my goat a little bit. I'm not mad at Mikel Arteta. Put pressure on whoever you need to put pressure on. But when the pressure was being put on you the last few years to get a striker, you kind of whiffed on that. So now it feels like with the ones upstairs comment, he's putting it all on Berta, all on Lewis, all on the Cronkies. And you know what? If it works, great. I lose my manners sometimes. Good evening, squaddies. At ease. And I just also wanted to say a massive thank you to all of our new subscribers. We've had quite a few in the last few days, and I really appreciate that. And welcome to Squad Central. We've got a really cool community here. People love talking about their football in the chat. We hope you enjoy it, and we hope you enjoy the content. And for anything you've missed, a lot of our shows sometimes are evergreen. You can go back. There's really classic shows with Bob Wilson, Paul Davis, Jack Wilshere, David Ornstein. And we also have really good new shows where we talk about more of the less tactical and more practical. That's how I like to call it anyway. Let's see. Lone Star says, Sophie, with some sage dating advice, not just listen, maybe we'll start a dating thing here on Highbury Squad. Kevin says, still fancy ladies even later in life, as you should. You're not dead yet, are you? I mean, come on, women are beautiful. Sniper, season's done. See you in 2027, 28. Don't give up yet, Sniper Scope. Crikey. And our Chief Like Officer in the house, Tammy Stills. I am delighted to welcome back to Squad Central a really good guy, and definitely someone who's out there doing the business. Mr. Ben Jacobs, welcome back to Squad Central. Hola.
Hola. I like that. How are you?
At ease, Ben, at ease. What is the shirt we are sporting today?
This is Senegal training top. It's too outrageous to ever play a match in. You distract the opposition, but you probably win games. But this is a current Senegal warm-up shirt. And on the back, it says Senegal as well. So when I'm like running around or actually finding time to go to the gym, I get asked less about it when I'm running away from people because you can see Senegal on the back. But when I'm coming towards you, a lot of people want to know what it is. And I think it will divide opinion in the chat.
It's very, listen, we love eclectic here. You also arrived at the right time, because I was equating signing GYÖKERES to dating the hot girl that you've been pursuing forever and ever, whether, or Sesko. And, eventually you're either going to get the hot girl or you're not. So you arrived at the right time to save me with your Senegal shirt. I know we only have you for 20 minutes tonight, so let's just jump right in real quick. In a snappy nutshell, I've been watching Liverpool do their business early, and we're going to get to Arsenal. Frimpong, now it seems like Wirtz is house hunting up north, and it's not in Manchester. What do you know about that part of their transfer story so far this summer, Ben?
Yeah, I think Richard Hughes has been very active, but you should also give credit to Barry Hunter, the chief scout. It's a very underrated position that not every club has. And he's the one that day on day builds relationships. So when you get a market opportunity, the player knows what you're all about. The family are aware, you're keeping in contact. And I think that as football becomes more digital, as AI comes into the industry, we mustn't forget that some deals get done the good old-fashioned way, and it feels like Wirtz is heading in that direction. Frimpong was a bit different. I understand Arsenal fans, and that's all you really care about, will say, how are they doing all this business, spending all this money? We've got the same money. We've not done any significant business yet. Of course, Zubimendi, though, is agreed in principle, but I think people are more inclined to say, where's the left-sided attacker or winger, and where's the number 9? With Liverpool, 2 different deals. One is Frimpong. There was a release clause there, which made it a very easy negotiation. And the player didn't have lots of other options. There was interest, but it was very clear, I think, even maybe 6 weeks ago, that Liverpool were likely to get that one done. Wirtz, completely the opposite extreme. Bayern were pushing, they were briefing confidence. The feeling was that Wirtz might not want to leave Germany, maybe even stay at Leverkusen for another year. And then Liverpool were able to, behind the scenes, discreetly, covertly, line themselves in a very strong position. Wirtz made his final decision. He wants to go to the Premier League. Now they've got to agree a fee. And it looks like maybe in the next 24, 48 hours, we'll start to understand, is it 150 million euros, or can Liverpool get it a little bit cheaper? On top of that, I still think Milos Kirkos in Liverpool will be one to watch. And then we know that Darwin Núñez is going to leave. And that's where I think you get this first crossover, because right now, Arsenal want a left back. Liverpool are going for Kirkos. I think Arsenal have got a slightly different kind of profile in mind. With Zubimendi, it's a midfielder. Liverpool are not really entering that equation in Zubimendi's kind of profile. But now we'll start to see, do Liverpool want a wide attacker? Do Liverpool want a number 9? And Arsenal naturally have those two very high in their thinking. So there's one sort of race between your own targets and your business when you feel that you've got the money and you plan, and you always get this flurry early, because if you're doing your job well, you line it up outside the window, you get it done in the first few days. And in fairness, like I said before, Arsenal have done that with Zubimendi. But then you have the second part, which is the undecided player in demand head to head. And that's where I think we're suddenly going to see a lot of crossover between different Premier League clubs, particularly going for that number 9 profile. So Arsenal, I think, have got a big window in them. At the end of it, it may be as big as Liverpool's, but I can understand why Arsenal fans are watching what Liverpool are doing now and probably feeling a bit envious.
Yeah. You brought up a very interesting point, and David Ornstein was talking about this in relation to a player that has come up unexpectedly. I know that, you know, we Arsenal fans have been very admirers of Rodrygo, and it seems like he may not have a place at Real Madrid with the talent that they have and the emerging talent coming through. And David talked about the landscape, and you mentioned it at the beginning in terms of the director of football, the scouts, and the team at Liverpool. Talk to me a little about this Rodrygo situation, because according to reports, it seems like there is serious value in this dialogue, Ben. But also, I know that you and David talk a lot about the relationships. It has to work. What's the relationship between the agents, the club? Can you talk us through the Rodrygo thing just a little bit?
Yeah, it's a strange one, really, because Rodrygo is heavily influenced by his father. And then you have another agent, Ali Barrett, who is heavily involved and well connected to Chelsea. And as I broke now 6 weeks ago, and it's starting to get a bit more media traction, Rodrygo and Premier League clubs one to watch. And the 3 that I were told were Liverpool, who are not now in the race, but they were aware of the market opportunity 6 weeks ago, Arsenal, and Chelsea. And I think Chelsea's perspective is they don't yet know what they want to do with their wide players, because you've got Jadon Sancho, who could stay or go back to Manchester United for a $5 million penalty fee. You got Mykhailo Mudryk, who at the moment is provisionally banned. And then you have an interesting dynamic where if Cole Palmer plays central, Esteval William will end up being on the right side, or vice versa. And I think this is why with Noni Madueke at Chelsea, they feel like a right-footed left winger is the main kind of profile. And I still think you're looking at Alejandro Garnacho, maybe somebody like Nico Williams, if they bite the bullet, much like Arsenal, and decide that that overall expensive deal is worth it for the profile that you're getting. And Jamie Gittins is a name that I still hear for Arsenal and Chelsea as well. So again, we're starting to see crossover. With Rodrygo, I think Chelsea are less inclined now to do that deal, whereas Arsenal are still exploring it. And unlike when we come onto it, somebody like Sesko, who has been driven by Arteta, Edu before he left, Jason Ato, Rodrygo's very much Berta saying, let's look at profiles that are not only market opportunities, but even if they're expensive, can grow in value. And sometimes fans bulk at the number, because Rodrygo is going to be 90 million euros or above. But it's not about that. It's whether they can repay that value and grow in market value over the entire length of the contract. So sometimes it's worth overpaying on transfer fee, and that's not waste of money or getting screwed over in a deal. It's about realizing whatever the number is now, it's going to rise, and whatever the return you're going to get is going to be beneficial over several seasons. And this is why the Chelsea strategy is buy young, not Galacticos, and that's what PSG are moving towards too. I think Arsenal's the inverse in a really refreshing way, because PSG had to get rid of their stars and invest in youth. Chelsea went from Abramovich, which was only Galacticos, to only youth, whereas Arsenal have built all this youth, but they're actually lacking just that little bit of star power or experience to have the right blend to maybe go from winning a lot of games to winning a lot of trophies. And I think Berta's perspective is, if Rodrygo's available and wants to come to Arsenal, that's the kind of profile you should break the bank for. And it might prove the case also with an alternative like Nico Williams. And then the thinking with Rodrygo is very much, even if he's playing, he's frozen out on that left side. So a lot of what we see with Rodrygo is right-sided. Why? Because you've got Vinny Jr., Kylian Mbappe, very difficult for him to play in his preferred position. Whereas should he move, there'll be that opportunity to go on the left side. And that, again, is why Arsenal like the look of that profile and are at least exploring it. I'm not aware of any bid at this point. Reason being, because that left side is one of two key priorities in the front line, along with that number 9.
Mm. Do you think Mikel is hot on Rodrygo from what you know?
Not
Clearly
as much
Berta,
as Berta.
Berta is. Okay.
But I think we're going to see a very different dynamic, because if you look at Berta's job description, obviously it won't be in the contract, it's win now. If you look at Arteta's job description when he first joined, it's build a project over 4 and 5 years. So foundations have been built. And I think Edu and Arteta worked because they were a double act, but to an extent it was kind of good cop, good cop. And they would pitch very well to players. And then the bad cops were the owners saying, you've bid 99 million euros for Mudryk. Maybe Arsenal fans will see that as a bullet dodge now, but we're not going any higher. We're walking away because we don't want to inflate the market and make people think there's an Arsenal tax, because look how in the long run that's now impacted Manchester United, who constantly over the years that have followed Sir Alex Ferguson have had to overpay. So you had Arsenal ownership discipline, but Edu, Arteta kind of on the same page, to my understanding. Now you're actually going to get a situation, I think, where Berta challenges Arteta a lot more. And that's where it's going to be interesting. Do they go for Sesko, an Arteta choice, and very much the historical frontrunner before Berta's time, or do they change direction? Do they bring in Gittins, or if they think it's affordable, Williams, or do they throw in Rodrygo to the mix and utilize the fact that Berta has a very good relationship with both the player camp and also Real Madrid? And I think that we'll start to hear more and more, hopefully in a positive way, because they'll work, but we'll start to hear a lot more scenarios where there's a player arriving that maybe wasn't Arteta's first choice, but it's a decision by numbers, it's freedom to challenge, it's collaborative. And there's definitely scenarios at other clubs where Chelsea bring in João Felix because they needed a deal to get rid of Conor Gallagher. Was that the number one choice for Enzo Maresca? Maybe not. You know, Maurizio Pochettino wanted Michael Elise. They couldn't trigger the clause. They got Cole Palmer. It worked out really well, but nonetheless, there was conflict there. So it feels like Berta not necessarily will have more autonomy on paper than Edu, but in practice will challenge Arteta a bit more aggressively. And hopefully that freedom to challenge, which is very healthy in a football club, will lead to the right signings coming in this summer.
Yeah, and I think Arsenal fans are ready for that. You know, Andrea Berta's pedigree speaks for itself, Ben. And we had Kevin Hatchard on too, who I know you know well. And he talked about Berta having a lot more hits than misses. And I believe that over the last 5 years and seeing kind of the lack of signing, especially in the striker position, deferring to Berta on a few things would be really interesting. I do feel like this. You mentioned Sesko, and I wanted to bring him up because obviously GYÖKERES is the number one choice for Andrea Berta, and also for most fans, and seen as the one that can come in and have an immediate impact, Ben. But you mentioned Sesko as well, and it seems like he is the player that Arteta likes to sign, the molding, and you alluded to that. He's been his favourite. Where the rubber meets the road, what do you think happens here? Because there were some reports today, and again, this is going to be a really long summer, that maybe currently he's the front runner. Some fans still think Mikel has the edge, but most of us really want Berta to kind of drive all of this. What do you think happens in the end with GYÖKERES' uncle coming out today and saying that he was staying, and some reports also saying after the Benfica game this weekend, we'll know more, but the uncle coming out saying he was going to stay in Portugal. What do you make of all this?
Yeah, I'll be staggered if he stays. I think there's a verbal pact in place that says he can leave for 30 million euros or so below the 100 million euros release clause. So you're looking at in and around 70 million, depending on what the structure of the deal is. And that's a bargain because remember, Benjamin Sesko's release clause is variable, and the better he's done, the higher it's risen. So it's in and around 80 million euros now, which means fee for fee, GYÖKERES is actually cheaper, but wage for wage, agent fees for agent fees, Sesko is the cheaper deal and perhaps has the highest ceiling, but Arsenal probably are in a project phase where they need to rely on that number 9 when he finally arrives to come in and shoulder the burden of 20 goals. So I don't actually think that it's saying that simply Berta has Gyökeres and Arteta wants Sesko. I think they both want Isak. And maybe the good news, if Isak becomes genuinely available, let's see how Newcastle get on against Everton and if they qualify for Champions League football. But if Liverpool did drop in and around 150 million euros for Wirtz, even if Isak became available for, let's just call it a British transfer record, which would probably be seen as value by most clubs, can they afford to do that deal as well? Maybe if Darwin Núñez goes to Saudi for astronomical money. But I think Wirtz plus Frimpong plus Gyökeres doesn't leave a lot of wiggle room for anybody, because you're already, if you add Isak at a British transfer record, in and around the 350 million mark. And I don't think it's a guarantee. It's a possibility. Luis Diaz goes. If Darwin Núñez doesn't pick Saudi, the price is going to drop. Salah's staying. And obviously, was he to leave, you'd only get the wage off the bill because it would have been a free transfer. So Arsenal may feel if they keep their powder dry and Isak becomes available, they can still go big there. And I guarantee if Isak is on the market at a reasonable price, not 150 million pounds, but 100 to 120 million, then Arsenal will have that as their top priority. Simple as that. And Gyökeres and Sesko will go away unless they decide, okay, we're going to bring in 2 number 9s and we're going to facilitate outgoings. Between the two, my gut reaction is so much groundwork's been done on Sesko that to simply walk away for Gyökeres doesn't feel that simple. And I think internally they are still having this healthy argument, maybe that's the wrong word, debate, which you need. And it's quite helpful, I think, for Berta to hear everyone that was there before him express the merits of Sesko. And Arsenal have definitely approached Leipzig and they're aware of the release clause, but I think they would try and go a little bit lower. And they've got a good relationship with Leipzig because in January they chose not to disrupt Sesko or Leipzig and back off because they took the player and the club at their word that he wasn't going to go. So then when you return, you've got that relationship. In the same way, if you return to Newcastle after the season, it's a better bargaining position than bugging them now, where they'll be very disappointed in you creating headlines and wasting their time and energy with a very big game that they're about to play. So timing and movement in the market is everything. And I don't think because Liverpool have started quicker out the blocks, it means that Arsenal won't end the window with as much spending and as much names. But I think it's Sesko or Gyökeres. If they can't get Isak, it's Isak as the clear number 1 if he's genuinely available at a reasonable price. And then I think, who are they going to go for between Sesko and Gyökeres? It all just depends on that internal conversation. And I could tell you one or the other, but it's a gamble at this point because Berta has genuinely brought Gyökeres to the table because he's established he can hit the ground running. He's already played in England, and they think if they bid for him, he'll want to join Arsenal, especially now Manchester United don't have Champions League football. But Sesko's the one they kind of had in their back pocket, a bit like Zubimendi, that they just thought it's going to happen if we want it to happen. Because as I reported at the time, and it's still my understanding, there were 3 clubs that pitched to Sesko a year ago: Arsenal, Chelsea, Man United. And he picked Arsenal. Then there was a secondary choice. Is it the right time to go now, or is it the right time to do another year? And he decided to do another year. So Arsenal feel like Sesko said yes to their project 12 months ago. And now they have to decide if they want to stick to that plan or whether Berta's going to influence it. If they sign Gyökeres, it's because Berta's changed the course of action. And that comes back to what I said before. He has challenged Arteta and said, no, we're signing my player as sporting director, not your player as manager. But if they can just wait a little bit longer and not commit to either, they'll have a final answer, which is what all Arsenal fans want, as to whether Isak is genuinely going to become available. And I think deep down, they're waiting a day or two until after Sunday to fully 100% understand the Isak situation. And from there, we'll see them move very quickly to get likely one of those 3 names through the door.
Okay. Do I have 5 more minutes with you?
Yeah. Oh, and also just on other names, profiles, we're hearing a lot of João Pedro. I think it's other clubs like Liverpool and possibly Chelsea. We hear a lot of GYÖKERES. I think there is some substance to the fact that Arsenal like that profile. And again, Liverpool could be in the conversation and possibly Chelsea as well. We hear a lot of Osimhen. I think it more likely that he'll go to Juventus or Saudi Arabia. We'll have to also see whether or not there's a chance that with Victor Osimhen, some Premier League club bites the bullet and pays the wage, or whether PSG reunite him with Kvaratskhelia because they were so effective at Napoli. Because remember, 12 months ago, PSG had the personal terms with Osimhen. And this is why it's so hard for like an Arsenal or a Chelsea to enter the race for Osimhen, because for a year, he's had Saudi saying, we'll pay you what you want. He's had PSG saying we agreed terms, but we're not sure if we want to revisit it. He's got Juventus saying, if we can do a deal with Napoli, we'll find a way to pay you your money. And then the Premier League clubs, because of PSR, don't want to hit that guaranteed 250k a week with no reduction if you don't get Champions League, with no incentive-driven structure. He wants a flat rate guaranteed, however the team or he perform. And that's a big outlay coupled with the 75 million euros release clause. So I think there's some substance to a few other names around Arsenal, but the three that I mentioned in the previous answer seem to be the three front runners.
Right. And so there's also the discussion of Nico Williams. And I'm going to tie this all in because I know our time with you is limited. So Nico Williams has been a target. He hasn't had a great season. He's got very high wages. Graham Hunter talked to us a lot about Nico. There was the idea that maybe, you know, if one of the big two, especially Barcelona, come after him. There's been rumors about Real Madrid lately. Some Arsenal fans wonder if he does upgrade that position. You mentioned on our show, we talked about Trossard and the Saudi links the last time that you were on. And also there's, if I don't ask this question by one of our listeners, he may have a conniption, Ben, but I like to talk a lot about, there's a lot of talk in the transfer window about the megastar signings or the potential megastar signings. But Wiztor has been mentioning Matteo Retegui as well. And I like to kind of think that as well as having world-class players, we're also going to have finishers. What's your sense of like Trossard, Martinelli, Williams, and this idea of maybe second-tier players that have to play a massive part because our bench was so thin this season, and with the injuries, it absolutely debilitated the squad.
Yeah, and I think in the context of can you bring in another number 9, a younger profile? Absolutely. I think if they could get two, they would. And remember in January, even though he's had a torrid time on loan at West Ham, it was about, could you bring in an Evan Ferguson, even if it's not perfect, because it's somebody young and if he's fit, that could have an impact as a squad player without the pressure of being that leading number 9. And of course, if you mention a name such as Ferguson or Retegui, who has done very well, I think, this season, it's not going to excite the Arsenal fans. But if you're saying it's Isak plus a young striker with big potential that's not the finished product, you're saying, brilliant, we've got depth. And then you also have the opportunity to maybe facilitate outgoings. So I don't have too much information on Retegui other than the fact that back in February, I know they went on a scouting mission to have a look at him, but I'm not so sure that that's advanced since then. And the thing in this industry with scouting is it doesn't mean a great deal. So I know it's nice when we write an article and we say interested, monitoring, scouted, meeting, but
drives fans crazy.
Roll off 1,000 players that people have scouted. And sometimes you're just scouting for market valuation. Sometimes you're scouting out of intrigue. Sometimes you're scouting because you need a complete picture of the entire industry. Sometimes you're scouting by chance. Sometimes you're there for a different reason, but you go and watch the game. So I wouldn't read too much into scouting. But what I would say is that Arsenal will want depth as well as stardust. With the outgoings, we'll then have to understand where that depth will come, because Jorginho goes to Flamingo. They're in talks to extend Partey, which really was quite a surprise in the last few weeks comparative to maybe 6 months ago. And if they don't get an agreement with Partey, whether 1+1 or 2 years, although it seems quite positive to me, then him and Jorginho mean that Zubimendi's probably not enough. So that's where they thought you go for a profile like Naipan, but it looks like Aston Villa are going to get that over the line. So there's probably still a bit more scope in the centre of the park, whether it's 6-8, 8-6. And some of that will depend on if Zubimendi's coming in as your starting 6, then does that give Declan Rice a bit more freedom? So do you want more old school central midfielder cover with a bit of versatility to get box to box? Or do you want more defensive midfielder? And I think it will depend on the age and the profile available. But I can certainly see more than one midfielder coming in. To the point on depth, I can certainly see more than one number 9 coming in. So it's not a case of the names we mentioned 5 minutes ago or bust.
Right.
There might be a more exciting young profile that can still come in. Or there might be the left-sided attacker that can also play as a second striker, an advanced 8 or a number 10, or maybe even a number 9. And I suppose that's where, again, Berta comes in. Even though Cunha's going to Man United and that deal's done, you at least explore that a little bit, given that he signed him to Atletico Madrid and sold him to Wolves, because Cunha's not really a left winger. He's a versatile wide attacker. He's a 10. He can play lead striker. So maybe that kind of profile comes in. And we know that in defence, Mikel Arteta really likes the idea that Calafiori can go centre-back, left-back. So when they look to strengthen in defence, even though they missed out on Dean Howson, it could be that a Milos Kirkos, who is more expected to go to Liverpool, doesn't end up being the kind of overlapping fullback profile they look for, because instead you say Joel Hatto, who Arsenal wanted before Calafiori, again can play left-back, centre-back, so you cover 2 positions. And I think that's the Arteta perspective. It's not just get depth in numbers, it's get depth with single individuals that can play in 2 or 3 positions. And Ange Postecoglou's the same, and Arne Slot is the same. Frimpong comes in. Why? Because he's a right back in a back 4, even though people say he isn't. He's a wing back, more associated with Leverkusen, and he can play in a more advanced position. Florian Wirtz, there's a pattern here. He can go left side, right side, number 10, plays an attacking midfielder. The versatility is so beneficial. So keep an eye out for these kind of profiles other than the number 9 that are not only defined in one area. And then we know on that left side, if it isn't Rodrygo, and I say left side because, again, he's playing on the right at Real, but he'd rather be on that left-hand side. You're looking at Jamie Gittins. You are looking at Nico Williams. There's a very appealing 58 million euros release clause there, but the wage is incredibly high. The agent fees are incredibly high. So all in, if you add taxes on top of it, are they going to bite the bullet? And I think if they don't, it's not, why didn't Arsenal do it? It's, oh, look, nobody's done it. And you could get a situation where Barca push for a cut price deal because they love the idea of reuniting Lamine Yamal and Nico Williams. If they can't do that, working in their mysterious La Liga ways to somehow keep getting business done, he might do what Zubimendi's done and just stay, because he's in love with that football club and he's on an incredible wage. There's definitely a bit of a parallel if you go back to last summer between Zubimendi and Nico Williams, where even if Arsenal push financially or another club, Williams may turn around and go, I'm actually quite happy heading into a World Cup year, being the star man at the team that I'm with, and I'll leave it at that and I'll reassess in 2026. So this is why Arsenal say, okay, should we look at Rodrygo? Can we bring in somebody like Jamie Gittins, who's more of a market opportunity and very affordable, but might not excite the fan base in the same way as some of the other names that we've mentioned? So this is the discussion happening right now at Arsenal, which is why responsible reporting, in my view, is not about saying there's 90% chance it's this player or this target's the front runner. It's about you understanding that 2 weeks before your window opens, the clubs are lining up more than one deal. They're making almost more than one verbal offer. They're opening more than one set of verbal talks discreetly behind the scenes. So then when they decide what direction they want to go in, they're first of all able to execute the deal quickly for the beginning of the window. And second of all, the most underrated point that people don't always get, they're able to utilize the deal they don't get as leverage, because maybe the profiles are like for like in age and valuation, and maybe they've been able to get a cut price deal for one they don't want to do. So bidding actually helps because it scares the life out of the club that thinks, if Arsenal don't get this deal over the line, we can't move in the market. And if they've got another deal at a slightly lower price, maybe the one they actually want they can knock it down. And if they didn't take the time and energy to line up 2 deals, first of all, they wouldn't be able to get the one they wanted. Or if another club gets the run, like Bayern are finding with Wirtz at the moment, you've still got the other one that you can execute, and it doesn't look like you've missed out on the target that you actually wanted. So it's good from an optical point of view too. And that's boring, and it's not as exciting as me saying Arsenal are front runners for Nico Williams, etc. But that is the reality of where they're at the moment. And then in probably the next 7 to 10 days, we'll start to see that movement where Zubimendi is confirmed, where the domino of the number 9 happens. And once one club gets the number 9, every club's going to kind of get a number 9 very quickly, because you start to cross off the targets and understand what direction your club's going to go in. And then the last point, just briefly, is goalkeepers, obviously. And we know that Joan Garcia is one profile that Arsenal really like. Ironically, with that, I think you're going to get Atletico Madrid, who might enter that race. They'll also be in for Martinez, and Manchester United are one to watch for the Villa goalkeeper there. But if he goes abroad, I think Oblak could leave and Martinez could come in, and they could actually make a play for Joan Garcia as a kind of young goalkeeper for competition, which means that Berta might actually be facing competition for Joan Garcia from his former club. So let's wait and see how that pans out. But it'll be a
very
real
interesting
surprise, real surprise if we get to the end of this window and Arsenal don't get 5 or 6 through the door, and important players, starting players through the door.
Brilliant analysis, Ben. And, you know, Martinez feels like a Diego Simeone Atletico player. It would be a shame to not get Garcia. Oblak, I'm not sure if has he done a deal with someone? Is he going somewhere specifically?
No, not yet. And he's 32,
okay.
And so is Martinez. So it's not like he's super old for a goalkeeper.
Yeah, exactly.
If they move him on, they'll bring in an important goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And that's where I think Martinez might be one to watch, because I don't think Martinez wants to go to Saudi a year before a World Cup either.
So you mentioned Saudi, and real quick, I think I read that you have an exclusive on Bruno Fernandes. We mentioned Gabby last time you were here, and we were absolutely shit scared as Arsenal fans that we would lose him to Saudi, and you reassured us. I know that we're looking at defenders. Heisen, who's now gone to Real Madrid, we were willing to pay that 50 million, but of course Real Madrid comes calling. I think this is already the best business of the summer. This kid is absolutely unbelievable. But Saudi's always a threat. It looks like Bruno's 700k a week, I think. You were reporting, and then reassure us about Big Gabby maybe not going again in this window.
Yeah, I mean, the Bruno Fernandes thing is simple. Al Hilal want him, and it's going to move fast if they succeed, because they want him for the Club World Cup. And this window opens for Saudi sides, much like Premier League ones, 1st to the 10th of June. So keep an eye on next week there. Man U's position, we should be fair, is they don't want to sell Bruno Fernandes. If that's genuine, then Al Hilal won't succeed, but they're serious about making a push. And it's very normal with Saudi deals. It happened with Henderson. It happened with Gerrard. It happened with Osterman, even though he didn't go to Al Hilal 2 years ago. They say you've got 72 hours to decide. And that is to put pressure, because if they're offering you that kind of bounty, they expect the respect of you making a fast decision. And some players it works with, and they feel pressure and they go. And other players say, I can't make a big decision like that so quickly, and the deal gets pulled off the table. And maybe you won't realize, because it's sort of more Liverpool focused, when Gerrard went to Al Ittifaq, those that remember the backstory, he went over there and then he came back, and then he did TV punditry, and then he said he wasn't taking the job. And the reason why he said he wasn't taking the job is because he didn't answer quick enough, and they pulled the offer. And then he went back to them and they made a new offer because they really wanted him, and then he accepted it very quickly. So it's going to be quite topsy-turvy, I think. With Saudi more generally, it's important to understand that the window comes in waves, because Saudi Pro League sides have got quotas of foreign players. They can only have 8 any age and 2 who are 21 or under. And then they can only field out of that collective number of 10, 8 in any match day squad. So if you're recruiting well on 3-year contracts, then a year after you've gone big, your quota is either going to be full or near full, and you're not going to need a squad refresh, and you're not going to be eligible to sign any more than that 8 plus 2. So 2023 was huge. Then I think everyone assumes Saudi's died down, but it hasn't. It's just there was no need to recruit as heavily. So now we're 2 years from 2023. You're going to see Neom make 6 or 7 important signings because they're well backed and newly promoted. You're going to see Al Ali simply because Bobby Firmino will depart. And in addition to that, Gabri Veiga might go to Porto, and they've just won the Asian Champions League. You're going to see Al Ittihad because they're the champions. You're going to see Al Hilal and Al Nassr because they're horribly disappointed with the seasons they've had. So there's going to be significant money in Saudi. Coming back to Arsenal, and very briefly, Gabriel Martinelli is one of those 50-50. They're either going to extend his contract or they're going to be open to offers. And if they don't extend it, then for the right number, Saudi might have some joy there. And in addition to that, I think if Al Nassr don't get Luis Diaz, they might turn to Gabriel Martinelli. I've reported before that Gabriel Magalhaes and Al Nassr is one to watch. I think Arsenal are 99.9% calm because they think the player wants to stay and they expect to renew him. But the last thing they'll want is for a significant portion of the window to open and it still not be renewed, because that's when you start just to get a little bit itchy that money might talk. But it would be a big surprise if Gabriel Magalhaes went to Saudi Arabia, but that doesn't mean that the interest isn't legitimate and Al Nassr won't try. And then again, come back to Leandro Trossard, which might seem strange because my intel, like others have reported, is that Arsenal are in talks with Trossard over a new deal, and those talks are positive. But like Martinelli, it's like a two extreme scenario where they're either going to agree a deal or they're going to agree an exit. And even though I think he's contracted until 2027, there's nothing in between as far as I'm told. So that's still one to watch, because the betting man in you would say Trossard will renew because it's heading in that direction. But if the window opens and they get a great offer from Saudi Arabia, it could go right to the other extreme, much like with Gabriel Martinelli, because Saudi interest in Trossard remains. And I think Arsenal's perspective is essentially with Martinelli and with Trossard at the right number. If the player was keen, they'll consider it. So we are going to get some plot lines with Saudi and Arsenal, but it would be a big, big surprise if Gabriel decided that he wanted to give up Premier League football as an outstanding Arsenal player, turn down a new deal and go to Al Nassr a year before the 2026 World Cup.
Yeah. Wow, Ben, brilliant stuff. I know you stayed on a bit longer than you said you could. But
all good. Probably my fault for not shutting up. But
no,
I'll run back out, put my Liverpool hat on and see if anything's moved with Florian Wirtz.
I know you'll come back and we can have a little bit more of a chat. They a lot of questions for you. So maybe next time you come on, I'll just hand it over to the listeners and we'll do a Q&A. It's going to be a very interesting summer. Arsenal have talked about this being the biggest transfer window ever in previous years, but this really feels like it's the biggest one for the Arsenal. You got to keep up with the Joneses, Liverpool making moves, City going to get stronger. Chelsea kind of finding their feet a little bit again this season. Tottenham now have Champions League football. So hopefully we'll do the right thing, get rid of the dross, but at the same time, don't leave the squad thin again.
It's depth, and it's not only depth, but versatility. And it's not only versatility, but it's experience. And it's not only experience in terms of age, it's experience in finding a young profile that has got games under their belt. And that's the main thing to get your head around here, that Andrea Berta is not the kind of character to sit back and be patient. It wasn't his style at Atleti and it won't be his style at Arsenal. So you can almost rip up the Arsenal project under Arteta because the foundations are there, the players he's brought through, the extensions they've done, the way in which they've solidified themselves as regular Champions League qualifiers. None of that's going to go away, but there's no way in hell that Berta's the kind of character to just come in and go, okay, let's just trust what we've got.
Yeah,
let's
exactly.
not overextend. Let's not underspend and leave ourselves thin. Let's chance the fact we're not going to get any injuries. Let's let Arteta tick over without any scrutiny. There's huge respect, and Arteta was almost a hiring manager for Berta, so he's certainly not going to be surprised what he's getting. But this is a very different, even if we remove the football from it, personality to Edu. He's quarter, like he's disarming and genial in the market, but behind closed doors, he's quarter, he's quite aggressive, and he's very no nonsense. And he will drag this 5-year slow cooking project into something that is ready, baked, and edible as quick as he possibly can. And if he can't, then you're going to see a lot more feathers ruffled, because that is how Atleti worked. And Diego Simeone and Berta, as much as they respected each other and as much as it worked, it was also love-hate. And I think it will be an element of that between Berta and Arteta as well.
Wow, brilliant stuff. Ben, you've got me hungry. Baking, cooking, Berta, barbecues. Let's rock and roll. Thank you so much. You can find Ben and his epic work here at Ben Jacobs, Jacobs Ben on social. You can hear his dulcet tones doing commentary as a broadcaster on TalkSport. And of course, he is also a chief writer at Give Me Sport. And what else do you have? Share with the kids what you got coming up, Ben. Anything else?
Yeah, Club World Cup is my sort of summer gig along with the window. I will be doing TalkSport as well. Final game of the season, I've got Newcastle against Everton. I will be doing plenty of transfer stuff for TalkSport. Lots of writing for Gimme Sport as well. We've got a Market Madness podcast, which is going to be weekly during the summer. That's me, Fabrizio Romano, Joel Bayer, Olivia Bazaglo across the Gimme Sport network. And we might even do something in studio or even with a studio audience as we get towards the end of the window. So keep an eye on that as well. But generally just mouthing off as usual, broadcasting, trying to break as many transfers as I can. And always a pleasure coming on, and keep up the good work.
Thank you so much, Ben. Brilliant. And your shirt has gone down a treat with the squaddies. There's 700 of them in live chat right now. And give Ben a follow. Thank you so much at Ease, Ben. I'm going to stay on and do some housekeeping stuff. And I'll reach out to you, and I'll be covering the Club World Cup here as well. So look forward to chatting to you again soon, mate.
Look forward to it. Keep up the good work. Have a good summer, everyone.
Thanks, mate. Bye-bye. Bye. That is Ben Jacobs, kids. Make sure you give Ben a follow. Bentastic. Well said, Matt. I was so engrossed in the conversation, I put as many of your comments up as possible. At first glance, I thought that was a Lee Gunner. A lot of you felt like he was Lee's doppelganger. Didn't know Ben, but got my attention. Brilliant. Yes, let's see. Kandwani, Sophie, love your show. You're one of the very best soccer analysts anywhere. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Berta should sack Arteta, Liam. Just getting straight to the point. Hawkwin says, this guy knows his onions. He certainly does. It's not just about, he's not claiming to know like who's going here and who's going there. It's the intricacies of the business that I like of how Ben talks about it, or even David when he came on. You know, what is the landscape? What are the relationships? And listening to him at the end there talk about this 5-year project versus Berta is almost like American sports, NBA, NFL. You come in, you win now, right? And Berta is the win now guy. And he's ready to, you know, you slow cook a pot roast, okay? He's ready to just throw the steak on the grill. Flip it, flip it, flip it. It's done. Let's move on. And I like that. And I think that's what we need. And that is the most fundamental thing here is, let's do something different. Let the guy that you hired cook, right? Let him do his thing. He's got the pedigree, he's got the know-how. We talked about it at the top of the show before Ben came in. And I think those are the most fundamental things. I thought it was interesting, the conversation with regards to Sesko in terms of Gyökeres. A lot of Arsenal fans feel like Gyökeres is the now. He's the ready. The club have done a lot of work on Sesko. And are you going to abandon that? As Ben said, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. There are a lot of you in chat that were talking about why can't we have both? Well, I don't know if that's possible from a monetization perspective. What are you going to get for Reece Nelson in the marketplace? What are you going to get for Fabio Vieira? What are you going to get for Lokonga? I mean, can you believe that name is kind of swinging back? It's insane. Again, we have devalued the market value of some of these sell-on players. And that is a really big issue. You do clear the wages, of course, but we continue to be poor. I know that we sold, you go back to Iwobi, you go to Emile Smith Rowe, you go to a couple of sales in the last year, but really we've been a poor selling on club, haven't we? There's no doubt about that, and we have to improve that. We have assets now, which is why some Arsenal fans think, well, do you need Trossard? Do you need Martinelli if you're going to bring in a Nico Williams or, a Rodrygo, who's very versatile? But at the same time, look how thin we got this season with injuries. So I think we sometimes we're a sell, get rid of, and bring in. But maybe we're at that phase where it's a build on versus get rid of. Sure, if you don't want Reece Nelson there, if you don't want Fabio, no one wants Fabio Vieira there. I'd be shocked if any of you want Fabio Vieira at the club. You got to move on from Lokonga. Come on, this is craziness. Like, stop with the loan deal. Stop with all this type of stuff. Build on versus get rid of. You keep Thomas Partey. He's had his best season since he joined the club. Have Zubimendi, have Partey, have Odegaard, have Declan Rice, have Waneri. This is how you win championships. This is how you win the title. You can't just keep, it's like rinse and repeat, right? We keep doing the same thing over and over again. And I believe Berta will bring a totally different cocktail to the table. And hopefully it's a lethal cocktail in a really good way, one that gives you a buzz immediately, but that buzz kind of continues and has a roll-on effect. By the way, over 700 of you in live chat. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And again, to anyone who's coming to the show live for the first time, new subscribers, appreciate you. Thank you so much for making Highbury Squad part of your day. Aleska says, Berta is our last hope to save us from the apprentice dictator. Arteta hate is laughable. Who said there's hate? Is there hate going on? By the way, Tammy, you're going to have to be the moderator on the next show. I mean, she moderates, but, what's the hate? Has there been any hate here? I didn't hear any hate talk. Just because you challenge dialogue and conversation, just because you challenge things, it doesn't mean you're a hater. I mean, it's okay to question, whether or not you think he's a closer, whether or not you think he's too emotional, whether or not you think that he's improved players, which I think he has. I'm interested to see what he's going to do with Berta. But at the same time, you see the same results and the same behaviors over and over. It's okay to question it. All love in the chat, says Ryan. Yeah, I didn't feel there was any hate. Our chief like officer, if you haven't met her before, it's Tammy, encouraging you to hit the like button. The Arsenal perspective came late, gonna rewind and hear the whole thing. Well done. Wayne says, Sophie, your football knowledge is way better than all these UK Arsenal fans. Keep the word going. Bless up. Thank you, Wayne. Appreciate that. Truth not hate, says Reggie. Yes, exactly. Matty K and Guna Russ having a little their own little romance on the side. The players you name checked were mostly from other leagues. We've added good quality players. They should be looked at. And I think Premier League proven players are important. Look what Trossard was able to bring to the table. It's you say what you want about Rashford, but when he went to Aston Villa, he helped Aston Villa. I think it's really important that we have some Premier League proven players. The only problem is that they come with a totally different price. I tell you something, I wish we'd have done some maneuvering before. I love this guy. He's gone to Real Madrid now, but I think he's the type of player that also would have challenged our back two. And he was cheap, really cheap. And I believe that you need backup for Big Gabby and Saliba. You absolutely need it. And Kivior, to be fair to him, did really well stepping in for Big Gabby. And I think he deserves his flowers. So, again, I wouldn't let Kivior go if you don't have... Do you have a better option? And also, who is your better option and at what cost? Is it more cost effective to keep Kivior, who's proven and played well alongside Saliba? And I'm sorry, I'm going to say it out loud. I thought he played better than Saliba in the last 6 games. I true, and I called this guy a donkey, and I had to apologize for it. So I'm not afraid to raise my hands and say I'm wrong when I'm wrong, and then if you're right, you're right. But if we didn't have Kivio, if we'd let him go in January, what state would we have been in then? And again, let's pray that Saliba's going to be okay with the injury. Urian Timber's had his surgery. He's going to have a little bit of recovery time. I don't even count Tomiyasu anymore. When people start talking about Tomiyasu, it's like, please, come on, man. Jesus Christ. It's kind of like Tomiyasu's like the boyfriend or girlfriend who ghosted you, right? That's what the kids do these days. They don't call, they don't write, they don't ring, they don't respond to your text message. They just ghosted you. I feel like Tomiyasu ghosted Arsenal. He's like got the ghosted injury. It doesn't count, all right? And Gabriel Jesus, he's going to come back. Who knows? I mean, we know, right? Let's not repeat the same patterns. You can't sell him now. You can't sell any of those two. What value do they have in the marketplace? If he comes back and he has 4 or 5 great games, fine, but it's too expensive. And football is instant gratification. It's about now. It's about capitalizing on the moment. And we keep making the same mistakes over and over again. You can't rely on these players. They're gonna break down again at some point. It's proven. And that's what worries me about Calafiori. You know, I hope he's not going to be one of those types of players. In and out of the team this season, injury prone before we even purchased him. So there were red flags there, people. Right? We got to be careful of this type of stuff. Buy robust players. Like, you know, some people like say GYÖKERES is not strong in the air. Sesko is. They all offer different things, but they're strong players, right? We need strong, we need talented players. We need players who can raise to the next level. I'm not a Nico Williams huge fan. I'm not sure if he's the guy. Rodrygo is the guy. That's a player. That's a baller. That's a talent. That's a generational talent. Go after those players. We need world-class players to match the world class of a Saka, a Declan Rice, of a Saliba, of a Big Gabby. Urian Timber has been sensational. One of our best signings in the last 10 years. Go get players who match that. Don't bring in averageness. Go get really good players. And I'm telling you, batten down the hatches, kids. It's going to be a long ass summer, but we'll definitely have Ben back. Rodrygo all days long, says Public. Jesus, you won't see till 2026. Will we ever see Jesus again? I mean, is there going to be another coming? And let's see what we got here. Patch up Jesus and help him learn Arabic. Instant gratification, not without stability. Well, sports world life is about instant gratification. Everybody wants everything now. No one has any patience anymore, Matthew, right? We do have stability, but this is the instant gratification season. Go get it now, right? Because you don't know how long you're going to be able to keep this momentum going. Mikel, I'm just repeating what the manager says in his presses as well. Nothing's guaranteed in football. Teams could rise, teams could fall, players could rise. Someone could have a crazy ass season like a Leicester City. You just don't know in sports. And I believe this is the instant gratification season. Win now. Go full steam and get what we need in order to deliver trophies. I'm there at this point. I've loved the journey. I absolutely have enjoyed it. It's been a blast, but I'm ready to get to the destination. Ready to put my sun cream on, my sunglasses and my sun hat and my flippers and my goggles for when I go dip in the ocean. It's time. It's now. Let's get to the destination. Let's make a booking at the 5-star hotel. Let's lap it up. Let's spa. Let's do it all. This is the season coming for all of that. That is what I believe. That is what I want as a fan. That doesn't mean I don't support like Mikel's journey this season with Berta. I really, and you know what? I want to touch on this a little bit, okay? And I'm going to go over my hour mark, but there's 550 of you in live chat, and let me know what you think. I was bothered that Tottenham won a trophy. And you know what I'm bothered by? I'm bothered that there are Arsenal fans that are not bothered. And I keep hearing it's the worst Europa League. They beat XX and X teams to get to the final. You know what? At the end of the day, nobody cares. They won a European trophy. Okay. And I am so sick and tired of hearing about it's a poor competition. It's a competition. It's a trophy. It's not the Europa League conference. It's the Europa League. Okay. It's the old UEFA Cup, which is a beautiful trophy, by the way. They just had their parade in North London. We haven't had a parade. Okay. We didn't win anything. And I respect everything that's happened at the club. I love the journey. But Manchester United idiots actually lost to Tottenham in a European final. And I've had a lot of messages from my family because we're Greeks who grew up in North London. Half of us became Arsenal fans. The other half became Tottenham fans. And they're not shading me because they're just, they're happy that they won. And I love my family. I'm not happy Tottenham won. I'm angry, okay, to see them as a fan lift a trophy. I'm sorry. Maybe I come from a different generation, but it totally bothered me. It bothered me that they had the day out, that they got to celebrate, that they got to lift something above their shoulders or head high. And it's your rival. It bothered me. And when I hear people say, oh, I bet they beat Bodo Glimt and they beat Cluj, right? When we were in the Europa League 2020-21, and we lost to Emery in the semi-final, by the way, we were in a group with a team from Ireland called Dundalk. Even Omonia, I'm Cypriot, Greek Cypriot. I love Omonia. I love teams from Greece, but Omonia, PAOK, were in that team, as were Ajax Athens. Ludogorets were in that season. Cluj, Molde, Hapoel Beersheva, Lech Poznan, Rijeka, I'm probably bastardizing all these names, but I think you get my point. Zoraya Luhansk, Sivasspor, Maccabi Tel Aviv, Karabag, Lask, and Slovak Liberec. So if you want to have a pop at who they had to beat, these were the teams that were in the Europa League. Only when it got down to like the semis and there was Manchester United and Villarreal and us and Benfica. Okay, that's 4 really good pedigree teams. We don't have the same pedigree as those 3 in Europe. We don't have any pedigree in Europe. In fact, there was an image that went out today. And I just want to share it with you. I don't think I posted it. Major European trophies won by English clubs. Liverpool 9, Chelsea 6. Chelsea 6. Manchester United 5. Tottenham 4. Arsenal 2. Leeds 2. Manchester City 2. Forest 2. And West Ham 2. I'm sorry. It's a shit competition now. I don't buy this. This is the same fans, okay, that talk about, I don't care about the League Cup. I don't care about winning the League Cup. I'm not saying I want to be in the Europa League, kids. I do not. I'm stoked we're in the Champions League and that we have Champions League football again. But don't poo-poo Crystal Palace winning the FA Cup, Newcastle winning the League Cup, Tottenham winning the Europa League. It is just nonsense. It is a trophy. I would have loved, if we'd have won a trophy this season, would it bother me? No. If we won the FA Cup or the League Cup, I could care less. Why? Because we could stand toe to toe and say, well, we won something as well. If it doesn't bother you or get under your skin, I respect that, but it bothers me. It bothers me that they've won a European trophy. They've got more European pedigree than we have. They may have removed their Spursy tag. And, some people say, why are you so focused on Tottenham? Why do you care so much? Because I care. Because I want us to take these domestic competitions a bit more seriously. If we absolutely whiffed on the League Cup, that semi-final 2 legs against Newcastle. We were rubbish. We were garbage. It's time to start winning something. I miss it, don't you? Let me see. Well said, says Ian. Let's see. Highbury Squad, never forget the semi-final Arteta record. That's true. Gunaras, Arsenal fans clutching at straws. We're run like a circus. Any trophy I'll take. Carabao Cup 3 is on the trot. Yes. And maybe it's our generation, Russ. I don't know. And we say we're entitled. We need to have the same attitude as Pep, whatever competition. And this is what I loved about Pep. Say what you want about him. But he took every single one seriously. He had the squad depth to do it as well. Let's not lie, right? But he did take him seriously. And, you know, the FA Cup and all that diminished when Sir Alex Ferguson and Manchester United went and joined this stupid Club World Cup. I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, I'm in the States right now, and the hype, I mean, they're trying to hype this tournament so much. It's like crazy. Kwame says, I'm honest. I appreciate that. Never forget the semi-final record. I think you got that. Asfar says, spot on. Sophie, you can't win with this cult FC. If you missed that show that kind of went on to cause other shows to do shows about it, I did a show, The Arsenal Have a Disciple Fan Culture. And it kind of took legs. And then I went on Harry's show. And then I went on Potsy's show, and it just kind of went on from there. But I have to say that some of the responses to it make me think that maybe we do. Green Lanes. Are you talking North London Green Lanes checking in? Love my old stomping ground. Marina, I wish congrats to my Spurs friends for winning the match. That far. Nick says, Son blew that chance against City. We lost the league and Spurs went to Europa. The rest is history. They're going to have Champions League football, and they're going to be able to attract, you know, certain players now. But we won the Charity Shield. Pep Guardiola said the same thing, by the way, against the Charity Shield. I don't know if he got as much shit as Arteta. Yeah, it's a harsh childhood. But look, my dad's a Man United fan. My sister is a Man United fan. My brother's a Tottenham fan. I have no idea what happened to my family, but something happened along the way. Let's see. Let me get a couple more comments in, and then we're going to close for today. Nice to see you too, P. Trim. Where is my chief like officer? Great, they got a trophy, but are they going anywhere? No one's going to remember them finishing in 17th. Do you think that they give a toss? You know what? In a few months, how long? Not even a few months, a few weeks, when the Premier League starts again, it's going to be 0, 0, 0, 0. So they had a shit season. We finished 8th with Mikel Arteta, not as bad as 17th. And also, when you look at injuries, by the way, I had this. Injuries. Where is it? Injuries. Let's get rid of this comment real quick. Now I'm going way above my injuries. Total injuries. Arsenal 27, Brighton 22, Tottenham 22, right? And then you look at this, which I can't read from here, but screen grab it and read it. When you look at the games missed, the percentages, and comparing it to other teams as well. Tottenham have had their fair share of injuries this season. And you know why it hit them harder? And I'm not here to defend Tottenham, for fuck's sake. You know why it hit them harder? Because their quality isn't as good as ours, right? We're, of course, the superior team. We're the better team. But people want to say, we didn't win the league because we had injuries. But people want to shit on Tottenham for finishing 17th, and they had some of the worst injuries of the season. And again, I'm not here to defend them. It was the same as Newcastle last season. Horrific injuries. You know, look at them this season. Mostly a fit squad. They look like they might get Champions League football again. I know Ben talked about whether they do or not. And Isak, Warren Barton, if you didn't listen to our show, go listen to it earlier this week, says Isak isn't going anywhere. I think most people believe he's not going anywhere. But if you don't have Champions League football, that does change your train of thought. But let's compare apples to apples. It's kind of crazy. No one cares about the fact that if we finish 17th and we won the Europa League, and again, please don't take this as me saying I want to be in the Europa League. But if we finish 17th and we won the Europa League, I would be so happy we won a European trophy. The battering we get because our European pedigree is poor is so overwhelming sometimes. I'm over it. That is the baton everyone smashes us across the head with. And I heard Mikel answering a question by Tom in his presser today, talking about the 20-year history of the non-pedigree and the Champions League. I mean, okay, fine. Yeah, of course. But you've been the gaffer for the last 2 seasons. You were in the quarterfinal and the semi-final. But if we're saying, well, our injuries and we complain about our injuries, then the same applies to other teams. Why would the year be crap? Why would it be crap? You win a trophy. Why would it be crap? It would be crap in the Premier League. It would be rubbish. But if you end up going to a European final and winning the trophy, it doesn't matter. Next season, in a few weeks, you start once again at 0-0-0. There's my chief like officer. Thank you, Tammy. I don't get it. I really don't. So this is the thing. So the target for next season is to bomb in the league but win a trophy. That's not what I'm saying. We're comparing our season this season to Tottenham. And people are shitting on the Europa League. It's still a trophy. No one's going to remember them finishing 17th. Of course I don't want to tank and bomb. But if we end up finishing in the league and we're not good in the league and we finish 15th and we do a cup double, of course I'm going to be happy with that. Clearly we can't win the league. So I'd like to win something. I don't get it. I really don't. I think Inner Circle says, no, sorry, just winning any trophy is not enough. We're snobs. We've become snobs. The club have literally sold everybody on Champions League qualification and being. I want to be competitive. Mikel's made us competitive again. There's no doubt about that. Gunnar Russ, top 4 is for the owner, a cup is for the fans. And I've defended the Cronkies, but we can't get back into this top 4 nonsense. We've literally, Wenger sold the fans a concept, an idea that finishing in the top 4 was a trophy. It's nonsense. No. Nobody cares about Spurs finishing 17th. They don't care. More importantly, I wouldn't care. If we were that rough, and you know what? They made a conscious decision to go for the Europa League in January. They knew they weren't going to get anywhere near to qualifying for Europe in January in the league. So they went for it. And he backed up his words. I can't believe I'm sitting here defending Tottenham. I'm not defending Tottenham. I'm just saying they're the best example of, and Manchester United, if Manchester United had won it and said, okay, fine, but they've won, it would have been their 3rd trophy, 2 cups with Ten Hag and the Europa League. They're rubbish in the Premier League. We've sold people on the Champions League being the pinnacle and the end all, and monetarily, it is that. It has become that, and that is why it is happening. But if you know your status, I'm not talking about us. If you know your status and you're not good enough to win the Premier League, and somehow you muster up the quality in a cup competition, you face who's against you, you can't help who that is, and you win, doesn't that make up for something? I think it has for Tottenham fans. I do not have a Spuds. No. No, I don't. History only remembers trophies. That is correct. Listen, hit that like button, please, on your way out. It costs absolutely nothing. Max says, I get the frustrations, but if Mikel got over the line, if. I love playing the what if game, Mac. I love it, but we didn't. If we'd have finished 4th, 5th this year and ended up with the FA Cup and the League Cup, I'd be happy. Man, the Champions League has done a lot of good for football, and it's done a lot of crazy, crazy stuff. I'm not. My regular listeners will tell you that I'm not. Yeah. Sophie, 13 league titles compared to Tottenham 2. What's that got to do with anything? We're talking about cups. We're talking about cups. And, you know, people took the piss out of Ange. I win things in my second season. It's true, throwing all the shrimp on the barbie. Taking the piss out of him because, you know, he's said that he wins things in his second season. He backed it up, man. I don't care what you say, backed it up. And if they had most of their players fit this season, would they have finished 17th? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe he learned his lessons. I don't know. But all I know is that poo-pooing a European trophy, I think the football world's become a bit snobby. I think that everyone is so focused on the Champions League. I'm happy to be in it. And I'm just comparing that. If that was us and we had finished 17th in a rotten season in the Premier League, I would have been stoked that we won the Europa League. And that is that. Let's get the likes up, people, and subscribe. Absolutely brilliant. Listen, tomorrow's a massive day. It's a big day for the club. And I think not a lot of people focus on it. And I know that a lot of people don't follow the women's team. But please, please, please. We're taking a jump into the watch-along arena, and we're going to have our first ever watch-along on Highbury Squad. And we're doing it because our Arsenal women are in the Champions League final against Barcelona. It's going to be a really tough match. But you know what? In a season where all the weirdo teams are winning trophies, can we conquer the champions and the queens of Europe? I think we can. So please join Albert. All right. And the watch along will start at 4:45 UK time. And our women are going up against an amazing team with 2 or 3 of the best players in the world. And I hope that it's more beautiful than ugly. And if we end up winning ugly, it'll be beautiful. The year of the underdog is in. So why not the Arsenal women? Okay. So please tune in tomorrow. And then we will be back after the last game of the season. And then we will also have some special guests next week to wrap up the season as well. Kim Little, come on. Yes, let's give our women all of the love. Thank you, Tammy. Please hit the like button on the way out. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Tell your friends about Highbury Squad. Really appreciate you again, all the new subscribers who've come on board. Thanks to Ben Jacobs. Thanks to each and every one of you. And you know the rules here at Squad Central. Don't forget to tell your loved ones you love them. And until next time, Squaddies, at ease. Tune in tomorrow, 4:45 UK time, to cheer on our women. Come on, you Gunners. We could still win a European trophy. How about them apples?
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
Reggie likes apples.